like to thank everybody for joining us today. I see we have people from all over the world, and we're very excited to have you for today's session. So, for those of you that may not be familiar, GBRI is a USGBC education partner and AIA provider. Our mission is to make sustainability, health, and wellness available and affordable to everyone around the world. And with this mission in mind, we have introduced webinars with suggested pricing where someone could actually access it for free if they are facing hardship or watching it to enhance their knowledge. With hundreds of courses on sustainability surrounding topics of energy, water, LEED, net zero buildings, green schools, health and wellness, Learning Hub at GBRI is your one-stop shop for all your sustainability education needs. And in addition to this, we also have LEED Exam Prep, which is available for free through our scholarship. And if you would like to learn more about our scholarship, you can go to the link that you see here on the page. Here at GBRI, we are very excited to have launched our first sustainability badge on a topic that touches us all. Climate change. And by watching courses and reading articles related to climate change, students can earn 4 badges over 3 different levels as part of our self-paced program. LEED, WELL, and AIA professionals can also use these courses and articles to earn CE hours towards their credential. We have a 7, 14, and 21-day challenge that you can use to begin your journey today. I will share more information about that after the session as well. And just something I wanted to remind you all is that within 24 hours of today's session, all attendees will receive a follow-up email, which will include the details needed to self-report your credits to USGBC, WELL, and AIA. Your certificate of completion will also be sent along with this, as well as the details needed to view the session on demand. So with that, I would now like to hand things over to Bill.
Thank you, Felicia. My name is Bill McElrath. I'm the Communications Director at CHIPS. We have a great webinar for you today. This is the 7th in our School Building Science Fridays series. Some great panelists today. Thank you to the American Heart Association. Larissa Jacobs and Emily Paul are in Houston. Dave Omram in Arkansas are going to give us some great insight into the topic of drinking water in schools, which is not as simple and easy a slam dunk thing as you would think it is. At the end of the webinar, we will have time for audience questions. We have a few things we'd like to go over first. We'd like to thank our sponsors, of course, helping to keep these webinars free and also contributing to the CHIPS mission and our goals to make schools better learning places for our kids. A few things to go over. The session is being recorded. If you have questions, put them in the Q&A box, and we will bring those questions to the panelists after their presentation. Obviously, welcome to put your comments in the chat box at any time. You probably don't have access to video or audio, but if you do, make sure you're on mute, and we will send the slides out following the webinar. A few things about CHIPS, in case you're not familiar, we have many criteria-based programs through which we advise designers, architects, builders, and trying to make new schools and existing schools into better places to learn through the physical surroundings and the importance of their structure and the effect that they have on all the kids and all the people who are in those schools. We have, as you can see, over 700 schools already recognized through our CHIPS programs all across the country. We have both national criteria and criteria for specific states and parts of the country that have different climates. And so we have a very unique program in that sense. So just a minute about our series, School Building Science Fridays. We looked at school buildings really as a system, and it's all the parts both the physical parts, the teachers, the staff, all those things that go into creating the environment in which students are trying to learn and trying to create the healthiest and most energy efficient environments that we can for kids to learn. And so that fits very well with our webinar today. Number of the learning objectives from today from the AHA, we're going to talk about their policies for school districts, how it's very important that water is available and that it's the default choice. Kids drinking a lot of stuff that they shouldn't be drinking at schools, and some of the resources available through the AHA. So with that, I would like to turn it over to Larissa.
Thank you so much, Bill. I want to start off by thanking everyone who has logged in today. I'm thrilled to look at the chat box and see so much representation by our participants and our audience from all over the world, which I realized this would be a global audience, but this is very exciting to see Germany, to see, Chicago, all kinds of areas. I'm actually logging in from Houston, Texas, as I think probably this slide shows. And I have the honor of working with so many experts at the American Heart Association on things like water access policies. And so today I will be with my colleagues, with Emily Paul from Houston, Texas, and Dave Oberum from Arkansas, who has done some phenomenally innovative work around water access. And truth be told, as fabulous as some of our new school buildings are, and as much of a system as it is, there's still a lot of room for improvement. We really want our children to have the best opportunity to learn and really optimize their educational experience. And, without access to really healthy resources, how is that really going to be possible? So we're super excited to be here with you today talking about this topic, and it's for sure an interesting one, and I'm sure that I will be learning alongside you as we go through today. So many thanks to Collaborative for High Performance Schools, and many thanks to all of you for logging in today. We're talking about water because really all kids, no matter where they live, deserve to have access to water. With so many sugar-sweetened beverages that are kind of infiltrating our lunches and our kids' lives, we know that for children to have the best environment and healthy options, they need to have access to clean and safe drinking water. So it's a basic human need. And I think before we go on to this slide, I'll just say a few more things before I hand it. Thank you. That's great right there. And then we'll move on in a second and I'll hand off to my colleague, Emily, but I'll just say a few more things. Children deserve to go to a school that has access to safe and appealing drinking water at no charge. We shouldn't have to go to the convenience store or the grocery store to buy a bottle of water. We should be able to get it in the very place where our kids are spending, really, frankly, most of their day. It's hard to believe that even in Houston, Texas, as much as I think this is a land of plenty, I've spoken with principals at schools that have told me that the plumbing is in such a state that the drinking water comes out of the fountains very brown, and the kids simply don't use the drinking fountains. Clearly, some of those school campuses are in dire need of an update and modernization, and the kids deserve the best. And so we really want to be a relentless force, and that's part of our mission at the AHA, to be a relentless force for a world of longer, healthier lives, and that means access to safe and clean drinking water. So kids deserve that, no matter where they live, no matter what their zip code, no matter what school they attend or what grade they're in. And as I said before, they're spending kind of most of their day, 5 days a week, most of the day inside that school building. So it's really important. Water plays a very important role in maintaining a child's overall health. Of course, I mentioned sugar-sweetened beverages. When you look at how to start a healthy life with the best possible inputs, You really want water to be the default choice. And when we have policies that create that healthy system where kids have access to water and don't necessarily have to just rely on bottles of water or sugar sweetened beverages, that can only mean a good and healthier life. So, with that, I will turn it over to Emily Paul for the next slide. And I believe Emily is going to be covering more of the details about how water truly influences a child's overall health. So thank you again. And Emily Paul, you are up.
Thank you, Larissa. Hello, everyone. As a former teacher, this issue is really important to me because I've seen firsthand how dehydration affects children. Down here in Texas, it can be brutally hot, and it's so easy for kids to become dehydrated, which leads to discomfort, disruption to learning because of lost focus or needing to go to the nurse. So I've really seen how water is vital for learning. From the physiological perspective, we know that water supports tissues, joints, muscle functioning, as well as aiding the digestive system. Drinking water can also positively impact children's cognitive performance, particularly their short-term memory. It also improves visual attention and fine motor skills. Tap water also benefits children's oral health. So reaching for water instead of sugary beverages reduces the chance of developing cavities. And as we adults know, water can also play a tremendous role on our energy levels. Next slide, please. However, what's concerning is that research has shown that kids are not adequately hydrated. So a 2015 national survey found more than half of US children and teens are not drinking enough water. Water access in schools and consumption by students can vary by gender, race, and ethnicity of students, also their socioeconomic status of students' families, and geographic regions. So for example, younger children are less likely to consume enough water compared to older children, and boys are less likely to drink enough water compared to girls. In terms of access variations, Hispanic students in the United States West Coast are least likely to report having widely available access to water, similarly with Black students in the Midwest, and in comparison with other student racial groups. Next slide, please. Relevant to our discussion today is that we've learned that environmental structure matters. When you have a water filling station versus a traditional water fountain, kids will drink more because greater amounts are offered at one time. And we've seen this in a study in New York City that found students increase their water taking by triple in schools that have installed water jets with provision of cups or water bottles. Next slide, please. So this is a quick video of how water filling stations have impacted the health of kids in Arkansas. I thought it would be special to hear from kids themselves. Ooh, I'm not hearing any sound, Felicia, I'm sorry.
Okay, hold on just 1 second. Let me actually do one thing. All right, let me try it again.
The link between obesity and heart disease is well documented, but healthy habits can help prevent heart disease. In this week's Doing Good report, we show you how the American Heart Association has partnered with local schools to provide kids with more of what they need to live healthier lives.
Well, we just want to make the healthy choice the easy choice.
Devin Dan with the American Heart Association is concerned because obesity rates for kids in Washington and Benton counties are 31% and 30% respectively.
If you were to fill a school bus almost 500 times with students, that'd be about 4 miles of school buses lined up. That would be the number of overweight and obese students that we have living in just Northwest Arkansas.
According to the American Heart Association, cutting out sugary drinks and drinking more water can have a very positive impact. This hydration station at Elkins Elementary School offers 5th graders Haley and Nate, along with their fellow students, a simple and accessible way to live healthier.
If I go out in the hallway to do something, most of the time, I'll see someone filling up their water bottle.
Since our bodies are made up of at least 70% water, we need to have about 64 ounces of water per day.
Shelley Hollingsworth, a nurse with the Elkins School District, knows how easy it is to tackle some of the most common health issues kids face.
So many students come in to the nurse's office with headaches, not feeling good. Sometimes they have stomach aches, and so hydration is important because it keeps them healthy, makes them feel good. They're more productive in the classroom, they're more productive at home, and they just feel better in general.
On average, most people only drink from a water fountain for a few seconds at a time, but by filling up a bottle, water's plentiful and available throughout the day.
Research shows that there's a direct link between improper hydration and obesity. So keeping kids hydrated is very important to maintaining a healthy weight.
Elkins Elementary is one of 4 schools in Northwest Arkansas to make use of money from the 2018 Rethink Your Drink, Choose Water grant program to install hydration stations. Go to nwahomepage.com to learn more about how the American Heart Association is working for a healthier Arkansas.
You'll hear a little bit more about what's going on in Arkansas in a moment. Next slide, please. So, thanks. Not only are water filling stations important for children's growth, but also to curb the spread of disease. We know that COVID-19 isn't transmissible through the water supply, but the surfaces around the fountain can pose a risk of transmission, creating a challenge for how students access water during the school day. Unfortunately, we've seen in a few school districts locally complete and total restriction of access to all water fountains due to the fear of transmission of disease. And that has been something that we don't want to see. It's been a huge barrier for students when they completely wrap up the water fountains. Water filling stations are a convenient workaround to this, and not only in the currently hopefully waning pandemic, but also in the fight against the traditional flu, colds, and viruses. So AHA is working across the country to make sure the healthy choice of easy water access is the easy choice, as my colleague said in the previous video. But with that, I'll hand it over to my colleague Dave to discuss what a future forward water access policy could look like where you are.
Thanks. Yes, I'm Dave Obrecht. I'm the Government Relations Director here in Arkansas. And we've done some work implementing some water access policies. I should say that all of our policies at the American Heart Association are scientifically backed. We have a panel of researchers and experts on the topic that use studies to come up with scientifically based solutions to help address some of the issues that we're facing. And so the policy that we really focus on here in Arkansas, and we're seeing this trend happening across the country, is ensuring that all newly constructed schools and schools undergoing major renovations focus on having water filling stations. So next slide. So a lot of people might be thinking that a lot of new schools already have water filling stations. And this policy really is set up to make sure that we are being thoughtful and purposeful about how we address water filling stations and allowing for students to have proper access and availability. You know, my wife works in elementary school here in Little Rock, and it's you know, a school with high poverty rates, and you know, they have a water filling station, but there's one of them on one wing of the school, and it gives out warm water, and kids just don't use it, right? And so we have to think about how we address this. There was one group that did a healthy takeover here in Arkansas, and they looked at various aspects of child nutrition, activity, and water consumption was one of the things they looked at. And so their cafeteria met kind of regulations that had a drinking fountain, but they noticed that kids weren't using it very much. And so they tried to put in they just for the study's sake, they put in like a kind of a water pitcher cup system, and they saw just the amount of water consumption drastically rise. And so, being thoughtful about having, where you place these can make a huge difference. And so, one of the things our policy says is that we have at least one filling station per 200 students, and that's that falls in line with International Plumbing Code. Here in the U.S., you'll actually find that number is closer to 1 for 100 for most states. So, that's a pretty easy bar to cross. And then the thing is we don't want to dictate how or necessarily that this is done, but we do have some parameters we suggest and some flexibility to do those. So we suggest that water belongs to be per story or per wing in the school, maybe per number of building occupants, per building, per specific school building areas such as the cafeteria, high traffic areas, and adjacent to gymnasiums and outdoor spaces. And so we ask that, when you're developing a policy, that you use kind of 3 of these parameters to make sure that those drinking fountains are placed in a strategic way throughout the school, ensuring maximum access for students. Next slide. Another aspect of the policy that we advocate for is that we allow that students be allowed to carry water bottles. And I think that's a simple one, but if you're having water filling stations, they need ways to drink that. And so that's one thing that we ask that the policy allows for. And, you can make some reasonable provisions in that, right? Maybe not having water bottles in a computer lab or in the library or some things like that. But so, we want to make sure that it's done in a smart way. And we also ask that the filling stations be clean and filtered, the filters replaced and all that stuff on a regular basis. So just ensuring that kids are not only getting water, but healthy and clean water. And some other parts of this policy that we asked, that would be nice to be included in a policy, or filling stations providing cool and filtered water. That's something that we asked for here in Arkansas. And I know I gave the example at my wife's school when it's becoming summer here in Arkansas, and the water fountain is putting out, or the water filling stations only putting out warm water. It's not going to be very popular, and you're going to find that most modern water filling stations, they'll cover this. And then, as Emily alluded to, kind of with the study showing that drinking fountains are the germiest place in school, if you can and if possible, encouraging that those water filling stations are those touchless ones like we saw there in the video. So you're really kind of minimizing any of that germ and contact. Next slide. So as we went through this process, there's been a few challenges we've come across, and obviously cost is the thing that jumps up for most people. Is how much is it going to cost the schools and school districts if we focus on water filling stations as opposed to traditional water fountains in our major renovations and new construction. And so usually these projects are such a large cost. Building the price of building a school or doing a major renovation, that the price of an upgrade for a water fountain compared to a water filling station tends to be negligible. Especially, you're usually buying quite a few of them, so you get them usually at a bulk rate. I don't have a hard number here because there's a lot of variables. Are they those big tin ones that stand on the floor? Are they ceramic wall-mounted units? Are they units with a drinking fountain and a water filling station, right? So there's a lot of variables. But we find that given the price of the major project, that price for an upgrade is not usually one that is prohibitive in any way. Next. So major renovations. One of the things that comes up with this is what is considered a major renovation. And I think there's a few ways to approach this. What I found here in Arkansas, and I think a lot of places you'll find across the country, our campaigns have discovered this as well, is that school districts tend to have a definition of major renovation on the books if you look for it. It may be kind of might be called it might have a name that's synonymous with major renovation. And we found here in Arkansas state law that it was already predefined. And But I think there's a lot of ways you can approach what a major renovation is. You can do it by square footage. You can do it by the amount of the renovation costs. I think one thing that's important too is that technological upgrades tend to happen a lot more often than building upgrades. And so, you want to make sure that you're kind of having that consideration in mind if you're going by cost. So maybe like cost minus the technological upgrades of the building. This major renovation piece is a really important piece, though. Here in the U.S., a lot of our schools are funded with property taxes, and it tends to be in poor neighborhoods or the last ones to get new schools, right? And so, by ensuring that when these older schools in these neighborhoods are renovated, we're ensuring that no matter what zip code you live in or how much money you make, that all kids have access to clean water. And so, I think this is probably one of the biggest points of this policy is that keeping this in mind. So when these older schools, and there might be a long time before a new school gets in that district. And so we're making sure to make a conscious choice that all kids can enjoy the benefits of water and not just those in those neighborhoods with the nice new schools. Next slide. So here in Arkansas, this is an issue we've been working on for quite some time. We started out at the local level. The first school we went to was in North Little Rock. I approached the superintendent there, Michael Poore. He's a big advocate for children's health, and he has an interesting school district that has a wide swath of kind of wealthier schools, and they're probably up there with some of the poorer ones in the country. And so, he has a delicate balance of trying to meet those needs of all the students and putting a priority on children's health is something we really commend him for, and we're glad he's a good partner in it. This experience with him, he really liked the idea, but he wanted to talk to the folks involved in the school district, and it really gave me a lot of insight on kind of what that process and some of those concerns look like. We talked to the facility manager about what this looks like from his purview, and we talked about too that you don't necessarily have to replace water fountains in schools. That they kind of have they have kits you kind of place over the water fountains that turn them into water filling stations, and that can be kind of a more cost-effective item. And we talked about what his current policy is, and I realized that this kind of was falling in line with a lot of the work they were doing. And so having something on the books and make sure that we're doing this in a real thoughtful and purposeful way and going future, especially when those people that are putting a priority in water may not be there in the future, right? And so for future administrations and stuff, this is already in line. And so that was exciting. There was some concerns when we talked about people representing teachers. Teachers had some concerns about water bottles. One of the issues that came up was alcohol. How do we make sure that it's actually water in the water bottles? And so we worked with them on that in our policy, and we made sure to address that. A few things. We in there we wrote that the water bottles had to be clear, that they had to be filled up on campus. They couldn't bring filled bottles from home, and so that we wrote in there some kind of practical things to address some of those concerns, and they felt comfortable with it. So we were able to kind of take a look at have those conversations with a lot of the stakeholders involved. We took it to the Little Rock board, and they were very supportive of the idea, and we were very fortunate to have that passed. We went across the river to another large community in North Little Rock. There I met with a wellness director, and it just so happened she was really enthusiastic about water. I had no idea before the meeting, but she already had a program on campus that was encouraging kids to drink water. And so she was really excited that she was not on an island and not the only one that took this issue up. We've done so much work as far as children's health have gone over the years. And Arkansas, which is somewhere in the top 5 for obesity rates in the country every year, it's a battle that we keep fighting year after year. And I think that one aspect, we focus so much on nutrition and healthy meals and activity, and water was kind of a simple thing there that is a part of our portfolio we hadn't been really addressing in the past. And so she was kind of exciting that somebody was coming in with a purposeful way that was scientific solutions to help back that. And so she really took the bull by the horns. She took a different approach as opposed to kind of putting on the books and the building code like Little Rock did. She made it part of her wellness policy. And those updates get approved by the board. And, she had some internal conversations with her facility manager, and they didn't have an issue with the policy as well. They thought they could accommodate. And, it's another successful policy adaptation by the North Little Rock School District. So we were able to take that momentum to the state legislature that year. And there we kind of had a whole new set of constituents we were dealing with first, right? So we were dealing with the state education director and the state facilities people, making sure that our policy was falling in line with things like the International Plumbing Code and their definition of major renovation, and not getting mixed up with technological renovations and some of those issues I addressed. And so we were able to get the school district on the way, but you got a whole nother animal when you're talking to policymakers and legislators, right? And so, it became a lot of issues being addressed. People were wondering what happens if kids don't have a water bottle, and do we have to mandate cups are provided? And we had teachers talking in there and talking about how that's not a problem and that it's something they could address, and so a lot of issues came up, and so we were able to. We had a really passionate champion of this. She was a former teacher who has kind of seen firsthand some of the, I guess issues that dehydration and how some of those systems in schools work. And, she understood the passion about it, and really was a big advocate too of making sure kids get used to developing that habit of drinking water and replacing that instead of some of those sugary beverages that they do consume. You can start these habits early of kids drinking water and making that a part of their lifestyle. That's a habit they're going to take with them to become healthy, active adults. And so her passion behind that really helped us through this legislative session. And we were very fortunate with kind of her guidance and the science backing it, and a lot of testimony from the success we've had, that it became a state law, and one of the first ones in the country. And so yeah, it was a really good couple of years in water access in Arkansas, and we're seeing a lot of communities and states across the country replicating some of the work we've done here. So next slide. If this is something you're interested in adopting in your state or community or school district, here's an email from Ben Schmaus. He works for Voices for Healthy Kids. They are an affiliate program of the American Heart Association and a real expert in this water access field. And Ben is kind of the national water issue expert. He can get you in touch with staff members in your area that can help you out, have an issue expert in all kinds of details. And so I suggest that you touch base with Ben. And next slide. Here's just some more resources to touch base with. The American Heart Association's website at heart.org. If you want to stay more in tune to get signed up for some of the work we do with advocacy, we work with nutrition and water access and all kinds of physical activity and all kinds of different issues regarding children and adult health. You can sign up for our advocacy work, get updates, and to get involved at you'rethecure.org. And there's the website for what I mentioned for Voices for Healthy Kids. It does a lot of work combating obesity, really focusing on policies around nutrition, physical activity, water access, and just doing some really great work over there. So you can get in touch with them. And we'll pass over to Larissa.
Thank you so much, Dave. I just couldn't imagine doing this type of an event, a webinar, without your incredible expertise. And I have to say, from my view, just working in a city, even a large urban and partly rural city like Houston, Texas, I have a lot of respect for the way you've been able to engage multiple stakeholders from many different sectors to do something as large as a statewide policy around creating increased access to water, which clearly will move the needle on children's health in Arkansas. And so with that, I would love to check in with Bill and Felicia and see if there are questions in the chat box. I may even ask you all as the audience, maybe to ask us if there's anything that really piqued your interest in terms of this topic. What can be done in Arkansas might be able to be done in another country, another city or state. maybe there are barriers. So are there any questions around what that looks like?
One question I had about this actually was, when it comes to getting these kinds of things done, is it more difficult actually doing it, or just convincing people at the schools that this is actually a real problem that needs to be dealt with?
Yeah, I think it's a mixture of both. I think, like I said, I think that there's an understanding that there's a benefit here, right? And we have the facts to back up this, how much more water they're going to be able to drink using water bottles compared to fountains, and the benefits of that, and developing those habits at a young age. So I think that's there. What I think that sometimes the issue comes in, and sometimes folks are going like, "Hey, we just built a new school. We had water filling stations. Do we need this, right?" And and I really kind of argue this point of like, yeah, but are we doing this in a kind of a smart and thoughtful way that is done where these water bottles and water filling stations are placed with kind of thoughts and access in mind? Is there one in the cafeteria? Is there one in gym? How frequent are they? Are they on every wing of the school, or do you have to go out of your way to find those? If it takes a lot of work to go fill up your water filling station, you're not going to go fill up, or your water bottle, you're not going to go fill it up. And then that renovation piece, I just can't stress enough. When I first started this job, and some of the policies I worked on, the one thing I realized is, man, one of the biggest factors in our health is our zip code. The equality and health is such a big deal. And there's a lot of these schools that are not getting new schools and for the foreseeable future. And making sure that you're addressing this problem along with some of those other renovations problems you're having with kind of schools aging. And you might be updating floors and lights and wherever else you might be doing, but water filling stations need to be a part of that for the health of these students. And we need to make sure that the benefits of hydration and those habits of drinking water are presented to all students, no matter how much money their families make.
How much do you think parents are aware of this? And parents, they're used to, well, I just got to drink at the bubbler and then whatever, and they don't really think about their kids getting water necessarily a lot at school. Is that part of this issue too?
Yeah, I don't think that this is at the forefront of parents' thoughts and concerns. As I mentioned, we focus so much on children's health, and this was kind of an obvious thing that I think we've neglected this and kind of now coming to the forefront. And we all kind of think about when we were in school, for most of us, right? It was drinking at the water fountain. And I haven't drinking a water fountain for a year. I don't even like the thought of drinking a water fountain anymore, frankly. But like, we all grew up with it. We didn't think anything of it. And so I'm sure when parents are thinking about their kids' day, it's something they're not thinking about. But I think that need is there. And I do think parents are concerned, though, about the sugar that their kids are consuming. At least a lot are. And I think more and more so we're seeing that. And when you think about what you may have taken to lunch as a child, for me, it was always Capri Suns and stuff like that, right? Those are, a lot of sugary beverages. And so my cafeteria growing up did not have, it had an old janky, it was the old gym, right? With the really old water fountain. And no one wanted to use that water fountain. And so, making sure that you have that there and you can teach those habits, probably not at the forefront of parents' minds, but I'm sure, once they take some time to think about it, or they hear somebody talking about it, I think they realize how important that might be.
All right, great. Anything else that you guys would like to add here? We don't have any other questions.
Well, I did see an interesting comment here. Thomas Carver, I think, is from Tacoma, Washington. And so thank you for the comment about 90% of your clients have really no problem in terms of wanting to do the right thing, which is including the bottle fillers. So that's great. Made a little reference to CHIPS guidelines in terms of school building standards. So I do think that CHIPS is also doing an important job to encourage this. And then, yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say there was another question about funding opportunities I saw there.
Yeah.
That Arkansas, there was a Delta Dental created kind of a scholarship situation for water filling stations. They saw this need early on, and they had that. So that was here in Arkansas. But on the national level, some of the COVID relief funds can go towards water filling stations. I'm not as familiar with this, but those of you are, I know ESSER 3 funds can be used to upgrade water filling stations. As Emily mentioned during COVID, a lot of these water fountains were shut down, right? And so I think that they really saw that tie in there with how important water filling stations are for not just this pandemic, but going forward. And so there is some of that COVID relief funds that went directly to school districts, and in particular, I know of ESSER 3 can be used for water filling stations.
And I'm curious if there's another round, if anyone knows, is there another round of ESSER funding, or is this kind of it? I think that question has been on my mind for a few months.
It's getting worked around. I think it just I think it's in the process, and there's voting on it right now. So that's kind of a wait to see it, but there is some potential for more funding.
Great, good to know.
Great, thank you. All right, we don't have any other questions, just a few more things that we'd like to go through before we close out. If you have more information, you want to find out more about CHIPS and what we do, check out our website, and you can check out more about our School Building Science Fridays webinar series and some of the webinars that will still be coming up. Our next presentation is on Passive House and schools, how Passive House design are used in schools, and we're going to have some good case studies there. So thank you very much, Larissa, Emily, and Dave, and great to have you, and thank you very much, everybody.
Thank you so much. Very enjoyable. Appreciate all of your great attention and attendance and questions. And this is definitely going to stay on my mind as I continue to look for opportunities locally for these types of policies.
All right, great. Thank you very much. All right, bye-bye.